From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
All right, folks, good morning. Here we are, Election Day. Yep, it's the day where America goes out and decides to vote, exercise our democratic duty, have influence on the next 4 years of our lives and our leadership. This has been a very contentious period, and I'm so glad it's over. I don't know about you, but I'm so sick of the political ads. I mean, you know, years ago, for those who are younger may not remember, before the era of YouTube, TV would just be loaded with ads. And now it's the internet. Everywhere you go, a political ad. I'm grateful to LinkedIn. And that's how I want to start my podcast today. LinkedIn, thank you for not putting any political ads on your social media network. Thank you for keeping it business. And for all of you on LinkedIn who did not post anything political, I'm grateful to be in your network, and I thank you for giving us some sense of normalcy in this time. I'm sure the next few days will be tenacious and interesting, but nonetheless, it's almost over. Let's get into today's headline. Before we do that, though, folks, make sure you subscribe to our podcast right now. It's Veteran November. I've got another great episode coming today at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so make sure you tune in. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe right now. If you're listening on the CyberHub podcast, make sure you subscribe as well. You can get our entire practitioner brief on our website at cyberhubpodcast.com. And without further ado, let's get into today's headlines. Beyond Election Day, there's a ton of cyber stuff happening that has nothing to do with the election, but has everything to do with our enterprise corporate environments. Where an unpatched window day 0-day exploit in the wild for Sandbox escape. WordPress pushes out multiple flawed security updates. Google to GitHub. Time to get this high-severity security bug fixed now. And a hacker group is using Solaris 0-day to breach corporate networks. So another Oracle story today. Let's get right into our first story. The unpatched Windows 0-day exploited in the wild for Sandbox escape. A high-severity Windows driver bug is being exploited in the wild as a 0-day exploit. It allows local privilege escalation and Sandbox escape. The security vulnerability was disclosed by the Google Project Zero just 7 days after it was reported. Since they're already seeing cyber criminals exploiting it. The flaw CVE 2020-17087 has to do with the way Windows kernel cryptography driver processes input-output control, which is a system call for device-specific input-output operations and other operations that cannot be expressed by regular system calls. The bug, according to Google Zero-Day Project, resides in the CNG and it's a whole bunch here. You can find this on our website, and it's caused by a 16-bit integrator truncation issue. The integer overflow occurs in line 2, and if source length is equal to or greater than 0 times XAAB, and inadequate small buffer is allocated from the non-paged pool in line 3. It is subsequently overflown by the binary to hex conversion loops in lines 5 through 10 by a multiple of 65,536 bytes. The Google Zero-Day team did put a proof of concept together. The director of Google's threat analysis group has said in the disclosure that the attacks are targeted and unrelated to any U.S. election targeting. Another Project Day member noted that Microsoft is expected to fix the bug on its patch next week, but they are putting out the notice now, and there's a little bit of controversy around that in the world of Twitter. Why'd you guys do this right now? Why not wait until next week? Well, Google Project Zero here is actually in the right. They're already seeing it being exploited. People are falling victim to this exploit, so might as well let them know. So for the next week or so, they can, 1, prepare for the patch, but number 2, set controls. That's also critical. So set controls to deal with this internally quickly as possible. WordPress has pushed out a multiple flawed security update. The day after WordPress pushed out a critical 5.5.2 security update, patching our remote code execution bugs and 9 additional flaws, it was forced to push out a second and then a third update release in that period of time to 5.5.3. The hiccup is tied to the WordPress auto update feature that accidentally started sending 455 million websites a WordPress update that caused new WordPress installs to fail. After realizing the error, it put the brakes on the rollout and inadvertently triggered an alpha version of WordPress to be downloaded to some customers. The issue was corrected quickly, however, and now WordPress site's operator report new WordPress installs failing and other gruesing over broken administration login pages. WordPress says this was fixed in 5.5.3 and are urging everyone to go in and update their websites right now. Google Project Zero, the Google security team that finds bugs in all popular software, has disclosed what it classes as a high-severity flaw on GitHub after the code hosting site asked for a double extension on the normal 90-day disclosure deadline. The bug in GitHub's Action feature, a developer workflow automation tool, has become one of the rare vulnerabilities that wasn't properly fixed before Google Project Day Zero's standard 90-day deadline expired. Over 95.8% of the flaws are fixed within the deadline, according to Google. A detailed disclosure timeline was released, and the Google security team reported the issue to GitHub Security on July 21st, and a disclosure date was set for October 18th. GitHub issued an advisory on October 1st and argued that it's a moderate and not a high severity security vulnerability. Its tracker is CVE 2020-15228. And GitHub and Google agreed to give him a 14-day grace period, and they missed that 14-day grace period and got no response. And so now Google kind of went public with this and said, hey, GitHub, get your stuff together. So vulnerability disclosure is critical, especially if it's being used in the wild. I'm not sure if this is being used in the wild or not. I couldn't find anything on it. If you do know, you can comment below or message us on our website at cyberhubpodcast.com, or my links below in the video on my LinkedIn page, my Twitter page, and so forth. You can message me and let me know. I'd love to know if this is being exploited in the wild or if this is just a Google versus GitHub, which is owned by Microsoft, kind of flexing. Hacker group is using Solaris zero-day to breach corporate networks. Mandiant, the investigation unit of security firm FireEye, has published details today about a new threat actor it calls UNC 1945 that the security firm says it uses a zero-day vulnerability in the Oracle Solaris operating system as part of its intrusion into corporate networks. While UNC 1945 activity dates back to 2008, Mandiant said the group caught their eye earlier this year after the threat actor utilized a never-before-seen vulnerability in the Oracle Solaris operating system, tracked as CVE 2020-14871. The zero-day was a vulnerability in the Solaris pluggable authentication module that allows UNC 1945 to bypass authentication procedures and install a backdoor named Slapstick on internet-exposed Solaris servers. Mandiant said the criminals then used this backdoor as an entry point to launch reconnaissance operations inside corporate networks and move laterally. To avoid detection, the group downloaded and installed a QEMU virtual machine running a version of the TinyCore Linux OS. This custom-made Linux VM came pre-installed with several hacking tools like network scanners, password bumpers, exploits, and reconnaissance toolkits that allowed UNC 1945 to scan the company's internal networks for weaknesses, move laterally to multiple systems, regardless if it ran Windows or a Linux-based system. The open source toolkits that were being used include Mimikatz, Powersploit, Responder, ProCDump, CrackMap Exec, Posh C2, MedUSA, and the JBoss vulnerability scanner, all of which we're all familiar with. But they've also showed the ability to create and operate custom malware, with Mandiant linking UNC 1945 intrusions to malware strains like Evil Sun, Lemon Stick, Log Bleach, OK Solo, Open Shackle, Proxy Chain, Poopy Rat, or Puppy Rat, but it's one P, Steel Corgi, Slapstick, and Tiny Shell. Mania said it believes that UNC 1945 brought Evil Sun, the tool that allowed them to exploit the Solaris and plant the slapstick backdoor from a public hacking forum. The 0-day was patched last month in Oracle's October 2020 security patch, but not everyone has patched this yet, and UNC 1945 is still active according to Mandian, and is still exploiting this weakness. You can find the full report on our website at cyberhubpodcast.com. That's it for our practitioner brief today. 2 o'clock today, we continue with our Veteran November series with another amazing veteran. I'm sorry, it's early. So make sure you tune in for that. That's it for us here today. We'll be back tomorrow, and hopefully the country is not on fire after what is going to happen tonight. Until then, folks, stay healthy and stay cyber safe. Thank you for listening.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.